Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tracing an absolutely fascinating journey, the grand arc of humanity's quest to understand the universe. And as you'll see, as we follow the evidence and push the boundaries of science, it ultimately leads us right back to the biggest, most intimate mystery of all, ourselves.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to drop directly into the perspective of early humanity for just a second. Imagine you're standing outside, looking up at this terrifying, dark, unpredictable sky, and out of nowhere, bam, a blinding flash of light rips across it. Naturally, you're going to ask, why does lightning strike? And it wasn't just lightning. Early humans looked around their environment and wondered things like, why are there seasons? Where did the whole world come from? Why do diseases happen? Now, for our ancestors, supernatural narratives, things like divine action, maybe punishment, or spiritual imbalance, these were honestly the absolute best tools they had available to answer these massive, overwhelming questions.
So, early religion really wasn't merely a system of worship. Actually, it was a comprehensive account of reality used to explain a world that was incompletely understood. These early myths weren't just people being irrational or silly, it was our ancestors actively trying to make sense of their environment using the only conceptual resources they had at the time. Which brings us to our first major shift. Section 1. Zooming out, the telescope.
The Copernican revolution essentially kicked off this relentless sequence of demotions for us. Step 1, we realize the Earth is not the center of the solar system. Step 2, turns out the Sun isn't the center of the galaxy either. Step 3, modern cosmology shows us the Milky Way is literally just one of billions of galaxies, all of which force us to accept Step 4, humanity is simply not cosmically central.
We call this the Copernican decentering. And you have to understand, this wasn't just a minor update to astronomy textbooks, right? It was a profound psychological blow to human exceptionalism. We suddenly realized, hey, we aren't the main characters sitting in the exact center of a cosmic stage. Now, let's pivot to the second great decentering. Section 2, zooming in, the microscope. Just as the telescope demystified the sky, the microscope came along and completely demystified living things. Before this, people believed life was driven by some mysterious living substance. But the microscope, especially when layered with Darwinian evolution, completely changed the game. We went from mystery to observation, to uncovering actual cellular mechanisms, and finally to a solid natural explanation. Life was no longer magic, it was observable machinery.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the combined power of these two scientific revolutions changed absolutely everything. The telescope expanded the scale of reality outward into the cosmos, while the microscope expanded it inward into cellular biology. Together, they revealed a physical world that was vastly larger and way more structurally complex than ordinary human perception could have ever suggested. But they did hit a bit of a wall. Section 3, the limits of mechanism. Okay, so the crucial point here is that science is undeniably brilliant at answering a very specific type of question. Just look at this rapid-fire list. How old is the universe? How do stars form? How does a cell reproduce? How does evolution occur? How do diseases develop? Science absolutely excels at answering these structural, mechanical, how questions. It gives us the incredible, measurable triumphs of modern biology and physics. But, and this is a big but, there is a fundamentally different class of questions. Why does anything exist at all? What is consciousness? Why is there subjective experience? You see, these why questions can't simply be treated as just, additional physics or biology problems. Finding another atom or describing another brain cell doesn't actually explain why it feels like something to be alive. To really make sense of this divide, we have to distinguish our methods of inquiry. As you can see, science focuses on explaining physical structures and mechanisms. Philosophy then takes those findings and investigates their logical implications. But contemplative inquiry, that focuses on investigating what it actually means to be the experiencer of those mechanisms. It's the core difference between understanding the machinery of reality and the actual experience of reality.
Which brings us to the climax of our explainer, Section 4, turning the lens inward.
I really want you to think about the sheer weight of this realization. We can literally map the structural components of entire galaxies. We can map the exact molecular machinery and neural activity firing inside your brain. Yet, despite all of those brilliant maps, there remains the peculiar, undeniable fact that there is an experience of all of this. Neither the telescope nor the microscope explains the subject to whom the universe actually appears.
So who, or what, is the one to whom all of this is appearing?
Science answered what is happening out there beautifully. But that very success essentially forced humanity right to the precipice of this much deeper, far more intimate question about the observer themselves.
If we trace humanity's entire intellectual progression, we see a really clear path. We started with supernatural explanations, then we moved to philosophical questioning, then empirical investigation, which gave us those amazing scientific explanations of structure. And that naturally set the stage for where we find ourselves today, the investigation of experience and consciousness.
And I want to clarify a very common misconception right here. Investigating consciousness does not mean retreating backward to pre-scientific supernaturalism. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite. It means applying intense scientific rigor to the first-person dimension through fields like phenomenology, philosophy of mind, neuroscience, and contemplative science. We are finally applying our scientific rigor directly to the observer.
And that brings us face to face with what we can call the next great decentering. Only this time, it isn't about displacing humanity in physical space or biological history. Instead, we're fundamentally questioning the assumption that the observer and the observed can even be completely separated. We are fundamentally rethinking our entire relationship with reality itself.
So the absolutely crucial point I want you to take away from this explainer is the compounding, snowballing impact of these three massive shifts. Think about it. The telescope changed our picture of the universe. The microscope changed our picture of life. And now, the rigorous investigation of consciousness promises to fundamentally change our picture of what it actually means to be a human being.
I'm going to leave you with this lingering thought. How does the universe that we can observe become a universe that is experienced? Take a moment to just sit with that mystery. The very fact that you are experiencing this question right now is quite literally the most fascinating scientific frontier we have left. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep questioning the reality around and inside you.